Hi guys, this week we'll be painting a Death Guard Poxwalker. I started off with a base coat of Chaos Black from a spray can, and then through an airbrush I painted the entire model metallic black. You can use standard paintbrush, regular paintbrush if you like. This is then followed by a dry brush of gunmetal. I just did the entire model, so I was sure I got all the metallic parts. Once that's dry, this is then followed by a shade of non-oil. Again, I did nearly the entire model. You can focus on the metallic parts if you prefer that. Due to the airbrush layer, it's so thin, it doesn't really matter. Once the non-oil shade is dry, I dry brush the metallic parts with silver. Using rust streaks from AK Interactive, I then washed the model with the rust streaks. I thinned this down a little bit with white spirit. Once this is dry, after roughly 24 hours, I make a mixture of 2 parts tan, 1 part elf skin tone and 1 part dead white, and I block in all the skin on the model. Once the skin's dry, I wash all of it with Reichland Flash shades. Once the flash shade is dry, I move on to Antonian Camo shade and I wash all the pustules with it. This makes sure they stand out on the finished model and they look diseased. Using Drucci Violet, I now go around the tentacles on the model and create a border between the skin and the tentacles. Using the same flesh tone mixture of 2 parts tan, 1 part elf skin tone and 1 part dead white, I now apply a first highlight to all of the skin tone. I do this on the tentacles as well. I make a thin down wash of Carlsberg Crimson and I use airbrush thinner for the wash to wash the tentacles. I use the airbrush thinner to make sure the consistency of the wash doesn't break up. I keep spreading this out a bit and playing with it until I have the look that I like. Using tan, elf skin tone and dead white in a 1-1-1 mixture, I apply a final highlight to all of the skin tone. Again, this includes the tentacles. This is then followed by a highlight on the bigger pustules of dead white. This makes them stand out nicely. Using Stonewall Grey, I paint in the pouches or block in the pouches. And with khaki I then block in the cloth parts. Using earth, I paint in the leather parts and the belts. Using Antonian camo shape, I'm gonna wash all three the previous parts: the cloth, the leather, the belts and the pouches. The green will give a different type of shading which fits the model better than just a regular brown or black shade. Using charred brown, I paint the horns. Whilst doing this, I try to have a little bit of a nice transition between the horns and the skin tone. And using tinny tin, I block in the golden or copper parts. Using bone white, I block in the eyes and the teeth of the model. Next I paint in the pupils with black. Using Carroburg Crimson, I apply a wash to the teeth, but I make sure it's not too thick on there. And with Lamentus Yellow, I paint in the eyes to give a nice yellow effect to the eyes. In the meantime, the green wash has dried, so using Stonewall Grey, I apply a highlight to the grey parts. Using a mixture of Stonewall Grey and Dead White in a 1:1 ratio, I then apply a final highlight to the pouches. I make sure the previous highlight is still a little bit visible to create some transition between the colors. Using khaki, I then highlight the cloth parts. I make sure the green is visible in the deeper recesses of the model. Once that's dry, I apply next highlight of pure bone white, staying to the outside of the cloth. Then using earth, I highlight the leather parts and the belts. I apply a thicker line on the sharp edges of these parts. Again, I make sure the shading effect I created with the camo shade is nicely visible. In a 1:1 mixture of earth and bone white. Oh, sorry, that's a 1:2 mixture, 2 parts bone white, 1 part earth. I then apply an edge highlight to the sharpest edges on these parts. Using Glorious Gold, I now highlight the golden parts or the copper parts of the model. I made them a bit more golden. Using Neelac oxide, I apply a little bit of this to the golden parts to create some weathering effect. Using khaki, I paint in all the maggots on the model. This is then simply followed by a wash of seraphim sepia. Don't apply this too thick. You want the khaki to be clearly visible. Using glorious gold, I now apply a thin highlight to the golden parts, making sure the oxidation effect is still really well visible. Using charred brown and earth in a 1-to-1 mixture, I then apply a first highlight to the horns. I do this in lines going from the bottom to the top. I repeat this process with pure earth, making sure the previous layer is a little bit visible from the top of on the top of the horns, or the bottom of the horns. With a 1-to-1 mixture of earth and bone, I then apply a next layer, and again I leave the previous layers a little bit visible, so that there's a transition from the bottom of the horn to the top of the horn, from dark to light. And as a last layer, I apply pure bone white to the tops of the horns. And that finishes up this model. So I did the basing, and here's the end result. So I hope you liked this video. Please like, share and subscribe if you want to, dislike if you want to as well, but please tell me why. And I hope to see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.